I suppose so. It does play almost every spell in the game, right? Yeah.
But yeah, I think I'm a fan of Quest Rogue. I think I like it more because I played it very early on in the meta where everyone was trying out stuff. So I think most rogue, like semi-decent rogue decks do well on day 1, 2 of an expansion. But we'll see how it plays out now. And I guess my final point as the mulligans happen now about the Infiltrator is because this rogue deck, you can argue on paper, isn't as strong as some of the crazy things other combo decks, for example, can do. You need to finish your quest quickly. You need to be landing scabs on turn 7 minimum for the setup. So you need to make sure you're drawing SI operatives and whatever's agents. I can't have a general term of them because each one of those words are singular cards in the game. I've just realized. Team SI, you need to be able to draw that Bozzzton seems to have done a good job of in his opening hand, but you need to do it quickly because if you're slow, I think the deck falls apart and you cannot complete your objective fast enough.
Well, this is a hand that completes its objective very fast with Skulker, Shadow Step, and then curving that into Operative and Assassin. And wow, okay, the Informant is the perfect card to go with this hand. Bozzzton is doing things correctly here, drawing as many SI cards as possible. However, I will say that, and I've heard other people refer to this as well, a lot of my opinions on Quest Warlock are kind of in a vacuum right now because I've been jamming so many games myself as opposed to watching other people play games. But this is an opinion I've heard echoed, is that this is a fairly straightforward matchup, all things considered, for the Quest Warlock. This is a very good opening hand for the Rogue, so we'll see whether this is good enough to get there. But I think Blyze has got off to a pretty good start himself with the backfire.
Yeah, I was pretty interested there to see from Bozzzton whether he was going to go Shadow Step first or Shadow Step after the attack like on this turn, as he has done, because there are like weird pros and cons for both, right? He gets -1 on 2 different cards instead of -2 on 1 card, which you can argue on average is better because if you hit a 1-cost card or whatever, then you're losing that effect. But I was just wondering how quickly he was going to plan on cycling it. But either way, he has the option of coin SI Informant now as a slightly sort of early bulky minion. But the problem is against Warlock, Unstable Bolt just kills it anyway. So I think it's one of the few matchups where you don't want a super early like 5/5 or whatever Informant. So I do like the slight delay on this.
Things did start very nicely for Blyze, but he has drawn many patches since then. Basically every minion in this deck kind of counts as a patches unless you're drawing Nightshade Matron when you have Hand of Gul'dan in hand. You'd much rather be drawing your minions from Dark Portal and Free Admission, particularly when you're playing the Dark Portal version of the deck as Blyze is. It kind of amplifies the importance. He does still have enough minions left in the deck for Free Admission to hit, because that's when things get really gross. Even if Free Admission hits 1 demon, it will not be discounted. It's not if you draw only demons, it's if you draw 2 demons specifically. So if you only have 1 left in your deck, it's very hard to then get it discounted. So he's picked up Free Admission with just enough time left on the clock, I would say.
Right. And this is so close to potentially being a pretty solid turn. He's just, I think, 1 mana off, right, if he wanted to play the Noggenfogger as well. So he could like bounce the 2/2, replay it, and then go for an SI Informant, but he can't stealth it, and it's not quite big enough to be safe yet, I don't think. So I imagine we could see SI Infiltrator and just stealth it and pass.
Informant, you mean?
Infiltrator.
Or you do actually mean Infiltrator.
Yes, because it just makes the Informant even bigger, but I think I like the hold on the attack of the 2/2 here. Just don't give Blyze options.
Okay. Sure. No Wind Fury to follow this up, but obviously that is the huge threat, and that is a top deck that is certainly still available. Blyze will play around that to an extent by dropping the Demonic Assault, does choose to shoot his opponent instead of shoot himself, which, believe it or not, is a viable decision. Yep. Avar was pointing out in our group chat that Gabby did that in the previous game. He's saying, oh, it's the genius level play. Like, I've kind of got used to that being the standard thing that I didn't even really point it out, but like Abar is right to point it out. That is a thing Gabby did do in the previous series, and it did actually end up mattering. But it is quite a standard procedure these days against other combo matchups, but because your health total is scary in this matchup against an aggro deck on the other side, you will tend not to do it as much.
Yeah, and Bozzzton now can go for Assassin. I think he's trying to work out whether he wants to go like Assassin Coin Hero Power to then push 7, or whether he wants the coin, because I believe now he'll proc the final quest. And if he does that, then next turn he can only go minion plus stealth instead of minion stealth weapon. So that's why I think this decision isn't as straightforward as it looks. It's like, well, of course you want to push 7 extra to phase. It's like, right, but it does limit the options he has next turn with Scabs.
He's going for it. And this is a ton of damage. Not a School Spirits in sight for Blyze right now, and he needs 2 of them, really, to be clearing up this board state. Neither does he have that much health left to play with. This is going to have to be a removal turn, it looks like. Drain Soul Mortal Coil.
Most importantly, without any blood cards here for Blyze. He's going to struggle to just have the mana to do stuff.
That's true, actually, yeah. So he just goes instead of committing more to removal here with the free admission. So he's just going to try and operate on, what, 9 health here? Sorry, 9 damage here, so he'll have 13 health with which to operate a full pop-off turn next turn. Okay.
I think that's fair because he knows Scab's stealth can come down this turn.
Yes.
So he's got the same problem, but arguably worse the turn after. So I like him. I'm like him taking this damage and just saying, you know what, next turn I pop off and win, or I pop off and lose.
That's fair. Yeah, I think it's probably a smart decision in this spot. He does have the Demonic Assault, which I quickly learned was a very key card in the matchup because it can protect you from that Spymaster Scab setup turn, protect you from the Battlemaster combo, right?
The Battleman.
The Battleman, yeah. But obviously when there's other minions in play as well, that's very limited in what you can actually do because they can just take care of the small little taunts, and the big Wind Fury will still go crashing face. So with such little protection available to Blyze, I think his decision to try and give himself an out is a smart one.
Yeah, interesting choice again. This is the downside I mentioned earlier of him using coin earlier, is that he can't use the weapon as well to get like the full 6 damage swing.
Oh! That's hand. He drew hand. That's the best draw.
12 health to work with here.
Yes.
Oh, does that double weapon?
That is double weapon, yeah.
Okay. Dark Portal as well.
Goes a long way.
He's going to want to get a Soul Shear cast sooner rather than later, I would imagine. Yep, there you go. Before you start drawing too many more cards, get those Soul Fragments thrown in there. Maximize the opportunity that you have to pick up additional healing.
And to no one's surprise, Blyze is lightning fast on this turn. Decisions being made at a rapid pace, and it's just, like I said, expected at this point.
If this is a winnable position, I might have to give Blyze a standing ovation here because I do not see it. Like, to me, this looks like death. Yeah, he's shaking. He's shaking. He's already given up with the concede. Yep.
I almost wanted you to say, if this is a win position and he wins, Gabby sucks and Blyze is the best now.
I mean, true, but yeah, I wasn't going to say it.
Well, congratulations there to Bozzzton taking game number 1 again with this Quest Rogue. So a lot of people, I think the general consensus is, oh, Quest Rogue, it's not good enough, it's too straightforward. You make a minion on, 6, stealth it and hope for the best. But Bozzzton now it seems to be doing okay with it, at least on stream. He is in this top 8. So it's all adding up to the fact it beat Warlock that Sottle is just wrong about everything.
Sorry, you are missing a further sentence to that, which is, and that's exactly what happened this game. Like, he drew every single SI card in his deck and then made a minion on 6 and stealthed it. It's exactly
and it
what
won.
happened.
People say you do that and you lose.
Oh, I see. Okay, yeah, big distinction, right?
Exactly, the biggest. We are moving quickly on though. Bozzzton going to be locking in this Secret Paladin, and again, a list we've not seen too much in EU at the moment, and that's mainly down to the few players who brought it, I think, have been getting it banned pretty often. So we do get to see it in action now. It does have those stealth minions. It has the Battleground Battlemaster and Blessing of Authority kind of combo with some setup required. But also, it does have that secret package, which I've seen a lot of success with just messing with all these combo decks, whether it's proccing the Galloping Savior for an extra minion to pile on pressure, or mainly just messing up potential plans of turns with that Oh My Yogg activation.
Yeah, we argued back and forth about how are we even naming this deck, right? Because it doesn't even feel right to call it Hand Buff Paladin anymore, because suddenly the Banana Man is the only hand buffer in the entire deck. There's more of a secret package than there is a hand buff package. There's more of a stealth package than there is a hand buff package. But in the end, I think what it ends up really being is Conviction Paladin, right? Like, that's the deck. You are building a deck to maximize Conviction and maximize Battle Master, to make those two cards as effective as possible, as often as possible.
Yeah, one thing I will say, I'm not sure who said it, but I saw this conversation basically happening. It might have even been you lot, I don't know, the casters I mean. But it was the idea of, if it runs dual kit, it's hand buff. If it doesn't, it isn't. Full stop. So that's the hand buff conversation solved. But yeah, there's a lot of Paladin lists knocking about, and looking at these mulligans, I don't know whether you're giggling at what I said, or more importantly, the double Stealer of Souls natural in the hand here for Blyze.
No, I'm just wondering when the coup happened, because I'm the self-elected head of the deck naming committee. I was wondering when I got overthrown. I wasn't aware that happened.
It all started with the Warlock. I named your deck.
That's true. D6 is a great name, and I love it.
What do you make of these Stealer of Souls, especially in this matchup? Because it feels like you can't just play them out, because Paladin should have stuff on board by now.
Well, it depends, right? I think it's something that a good Paladin player will be aware of. They will have lost to it once and gone, okay, yeah, let's not do that again. Where, Paladins can spend a little time setting up, right? Like, Bozzdton's gone 1-drop on 1 into weapon on 2, and then maybe, like, Banana Man comes down this turn, right? Then suddenly they're only showing 4 and you're putting a 6 health minion down on curve, which actually is a pretty good position for you to be in, because there's not too many cards that are fast from hand in the way that they can actually rush or add damage, right? Like, you have a reasonable expectation that the 6 health minion might stick to the board at that point. So rolling the dice and just saying, tempo my minion, see if it sticks, I don't think it's the dumbest thing in the world in this matchup.
And I did forget to mention this, which something that isn't common, at least on the ladder versions of this style of Paladin. Bozzzton is only running 1 Galloping Savior and 1 Avenge that you can see in his hand there. I did double take a second and be like, wait, where did that Avenge come from? What's going on? Yeah, just something else that Blyze is going to have to be aware of. Gets the Extortion to face, which is kind of hilarious.
Take it, yep. I think he would have preferred the original option of killing the Righteous Protector and healing for 4, but here we are.
Or even just killing the Righteous Protector. I think that's kind of a win for Bozzdton at this point. He'll take the 3 damage to face. I don't think he's that bothered.
True. Drain Soul and a 2-mana removal is a decent looking turn 5 against Paladin a lot of the time, particularly when you already have this bonus minion in play from the Petting Zoo. That's both Yoggs dealt with now, right? So Blyze never has to worry about that again for the rest of the game? Yeah, okay.
This is now where the deck starts getting tricky, because one thing that this style of Paladin definitely cannot do is recover from really just losing the board, right?
Yes.
They struggle to rebuild the board up again. So Bozzdton now will be thinking about, okay, how do I make the sort of most durable board? So, for example, Blessing of Authority can find a target next turn, or maybe just a Conviction with Coin Battleground Master might be enough, although we can see it almost certainly will not be. But all of these thoughts have to go up, because it's definitely a deck where if you slip and you lose the board, it is so unlikely that you'll ever recover and win the game.
Right. Looking like this is going to be double secret for Bozzdton. If it is going to be double secret, he is going to get his board smacked this turn, as long as Blyze sequences this in the way where Avenge does not proc. Oh, wow, it doesn't even need to. Bozzdton makes the trade for him. Blyze says, thank you very much. Yeah, roll of the eyes from Bozzdton.
Agony goes a long way.
What were you saying about coming from behind on board?
Linquist?
This is what I mean. It's why I was a little surprised to not see the Tempo Stealer on 4 when he went for the spell activation instead. It's a little bit surprising, because he didn't see any hand buffs, right? So it eliminates First Blade of Rin from the pool. This doesn't have Rush. I tend to mix that up. Like for the first 24 hours of the expansion, I had it the other way around, where it was a rush card that gained Divine Shield if it would have been buffed. Very, very, very big difference in a lot of different scenarios.
This is a solid setup, though. Two reasonably durable minions, especially after seeing one School Spirits get played out, this sneaky delinquent. You'd feel reasonable about surviving this turn, then Blessing of Authority can land, then you're asking more questions of the Warlock to be able to take it down, but the rate in which Blyze is drawing cards, and like due to the fact he's not had big pop-off turns, it does mean a lot of his draw is that removal that's probably going to be quite useful if he has to deal with this Blessing of Authority this game.
It's kind of a weird turn. He's going to go Shadow Blast. Okay, there's a lot of different ways to do this. He could have tapped and then he gets 1 mana back and then he coils the shield and then trades the 5/3 into it. He chose to do the same thing with Shadow Blast instead, which of course gets the 1 mana back, but then what are you spending this 1 mana on is the question, which made me like the other way a little bit more, but the other way is slightly weird because you tap, which gets you +1 card draw, but then you throw away a coil, which gets you -1 card draw over the course of the game, so slightly confusing as to what the optimal way to spend that last bit of mana was.
Well, this game plan for me looks very simple for Bozzzton. Smack Blessing of Authority on that stealth minion, do not attack, let Blyze play with his little Warlock toys, and then you go Conviction, a Battleground Battlemaster, and destroy your opponent.
In theory, yes, and I think that's a reasonable play, and I think it might even be the play this turn. In reality, he's going to get Void Walkered out of existence if he tries to make that play. But I think, honestly, with a lack of better options available, that might just be where we're at.
And if the Void Walkers come down, it becomes very simple as well. Don't worry about the Battlemaster. Let me check at the list. Never mind, he's not playing Samuro. Well, yeah, he's just dead.
He's just dead.
I thought he was playing Samuro, because a lot of these lists are playing Samuro as like the only card that has like AoE capabilities.
Yeah, it shows how like incredibly warped the meta game. Oh, this is interesting, by the way. He's just pushing 18 now, which is going back to the theory of just deal the damage right to prevent the pop-off turns from happening. It's a very reasonable thing to do. Again, like it loses to a wide variety of things from Blyze, but in the same way that the other play did as well. But I just want to make the point, it just shows how like weirdly warped the meta is right now, where, you know, the combo decks are so powerful that aggro decks are having to be so linear aggro to compete with them that it's creating these weird dynamics. So it's like, okay, so I've got this sick strategy with my deck. Okay, what happens if your opponent plays a Void Walker? Oh, I lose to that, but don't worry about that.
But if they play 18 cards in one turn, oh, that I can beat. But one mana, 1/3. Whew, you got me. Yeah, bit of a problem now, and this is what I was talking about earlier. I guess the fact that Blyze is so low is a big deal, and the fact that this delinquent gave him an additional stealth minion to replay also helps him out a great deal here. What would be the best here? Like, these two Void Walkers are an absolute nightmare, aren't they?
They really are, yeah.
If there was one, then Bannerman helps to buff the Blade of Rin and then push through with that. But the fact that there's two, suddenly Battleground Battlemaster as a draw doesn't cut it. Bannerman doesn't cut it. Like,
probably time to start blasting your own stuff with some healing spells. Scary. Yep, Drain Soul, you're
oh no, I need help for this.
Yeah. There's another Drain Soul to do similar again the next turn. He is now, I believe, on 2 out of 7 on the second proc of the quest, so he has 3 more healing coming fairly soon as well. But this is fine margins for sure.
Yeah, I actually think looking at this, Hammer of the Naru might have actually been by far the best draw for Bozzzton.
Oh, that's a good shout. Yeah. That was the draw.
Let me think.
See it, because it's still a turn too late at this point, right? Because you can never play Battlemaster and the Hammer in the same turn. So even if you were to just, you know, chill this turn, like play the other minions, it's still not like you would be able to get through if you drew it on the next turn?
But depending, right? Because the other minions could get through.
Oh, they're not living. Forget about that. That's never happening.
But remember, though, this secret is galloping, so that's an additional minion as well if Blyze pops off. So it's something, right? You just throw enough at the wall and hope some of it sticks.
He is just going to go for maximum board presence. This is the other play I was considering. Like, yes, this does feel like it sacrifices the win condition, but when you actually look, there's like 13 health and a divine shield on the board, right? Like, that's not actually that easy to deal with. We can see a very removal stacked hand that's going to make this look very stupid, but there are certainly hands that this beats, just as there are hands that, you know, waiting around and doing nothing beats.
And honestly, the win condition for Bozzzton now is only really deal a little bit of damage, right? It's not like he's being asked a lot of at this second in time. There's the horse.
Solskjaer, he's going to heal back up to 4, heal back up to 7 with the Drain Soul. He's going to want some way to activate this Mortal Coil, which he's kind of struggling with at the moment, it's got to be said. Oh no, sorry, this is a 1 health now. My bad. I thought this was getting killed by the Drain Soul. Well, that's not the draw though.
Still got the tap.
Almost out of time.
See what I mean with the addition of this horse? Like, it's not as simple. Divine Shield on the Murloc. Not that the Murloc alone is going to get the job done. He does get the Grandmaster, though.
That is the clutchest touch off the top there, just being able to put that extra boost of healing. He's going to be able to clear up the horse now with the Matron, but that Matron just costing him 3 to play in the first place was very, very scary until that touch appeared, right? It would have been the difference. Look at it. Subtract the 4 healing from this, and that's a hammer top deck. 4 lethal that he's prevented by being able to pick up that touch. As it stood, he would have been fine chilling on 3 health here anyway. You see the little fist pump come out from Blyze. He knows that's job done.
Well, he wouldn't have been fine on 3 health, right?
Let me think.
Well, in the game we're playing here, where Bozzzton draws this, he would have been.
Oh, sure. I was just meaning, like, he could have drawn, again, Hammer of the Naru.
Yes, yeah.
And finished it. But yeah, of course, Conviction not going to do. There's no charge minions knocking around. First Blade of Rin can't get much done. And more importantly, Bozzzton's just pretty much dead on board at this point. Or close enough, anyway.
Mm-hmm. 6 out of 8 on Tamsin quest, so there is what 2, 4, 6, 8, 30. Yeah, I mean he's dead to what we can see because Blyze just pays 2 to activate Tamsin, and then he just needs 2 damage for lethal. Yeah, or taps. Yeah, whatever.
Just gonna play the Rin, do what he can. Like again, it's one of those things where maybe he can draw something. McGurgle Prime could help him out next turn if everything goes magically well. We can see, of course, that is not going to be the case. Tamsin's going to get played, and Blyze is going to even up the series 1-on-1 with getting a win on this Warlock. And it was a very roundabout and a close game. And honestly, forget all the synergy and all the crazy combos. Voidwalkers were the MVP of this game, Sottle. The old 1-mana 1/3 demon from way back when.
They're so good, and they're such a crux of how this deck wins its bad matchups. Because, again, when you start out learning this deck, you might learn how to pop off occasionally and start doing that fairly well and win some combo matches and you're feeling good. But then the Face Hunters and the Aggro Shamans and the Shadow Priests come out, right? And then you're thinking, well, how on earth do I deal with any of this? But, you know, timing Voidwalkers against Doomhammer, timing Voidwalkers against Lothar, timing Voidwalkers against Shadow. I mean, Shadow Priests, you can kind of just jam them whenever because like that deck just cannot deal with other minions. Like, you just play 1/3 taunts and they have to crash their minions into them most of the time. So the timing of those cards are very, very crucial to finding your way out of bad matchups like this.
Yeah, even providing yourself with targets for your own spells a lot of the time, right? And it's definitely one of those cards that when you look at the list and say you play 5 games of this Warlock, you go, okay, this has to be the most cuttable card out of the 30. But when you play like 20, 30, 40 games, you're like, oh, hang on a minute, okay, I can see the value of this card in the game in general. So yeah,
Can I play 6 of these?
yeah, big win there for Blyze. Evening up the series, as I mentioned, 1-1. It does mean we're moving on to Blyze on his Quest Mage. going to be on for this game number 3, and it is going to be a good old mage mirror Sottle, as Bozzdton's going to be jumping over to his mage as well. A big difference though is Bozzdton is running those Apexis blasts, and similar to what I believe we saw yesterday from Bozzdton, the Gur route, I guess, or the aggressive route in general, especially in this matchup, feels much more doable when you're just playing more burn spells than your opponent.
Yeah, for sure. It does make the deck a little bit clunkier overall, because of course you just do have those 5-mana spells that you can draw, right? Which seems like a ton of mana in the current metagame.
That are not a spell school either.
They're not a spell school and don't refresh you 4 mana when you play them either, so they end up being extremely expensive. But we did see them put to good use yesterday, and we have seen that method, not only by Bozzdton but by Gur, as you were talking about, used to great effect, where you just let the quest be an afterthought almost and just focus on burn damage. And I think that's an option that Bozzdton quite rightly has available to himself. And again, I think this wouldn't necessarily be the version of the deck that Bozzdton would even recommend to jam on ladder, right? It's just he's building this lineup with a specific purpose. You have to look at his lineup and say there's no Warlock in there. He's playing 3 aggro decks and a fast OTK Demon Hunter. So his goal is to beat up on these decks like the Quest Warlock, like the OTK Demon Hunter himself. And that's where Apexis Blast actually comes into play, because getting a big minion in play is actually something that a lot of those combo decks struggle to deal with, right? So in that regard, it does make a lot of sense, even though like in a vacuum against a spread of matchups, it would seem like Apexis Blast is just too clunky, too inefficient for the current metagame.
Here already, I think Blyze was happy about something, and that is because he is a European Grandmaster who draws Incanter's Flow on 2.
Well played.
Job done. Well played from Bozzdton. He knows what's up, and just in case you weren't tuning in or playing much Hearthstone in the last meta, the win chance of your game of Hearthstone after playing Incanter's Flow on 2 goes up quite a lot in these games. So yes, even though it looks maybe silly to someone who's newer to the game or doesn't know much about the deck, just playing a 2-mana spell that on the surface does nothing initially, and Bozzdton's already saying well played, yeah, the win rate's that high.
In fact, we can just have a little look. Let's find the updated numbers.
71% is my guess.
Mage Mirror, Incanter's Flow in the opening hand, 70.2% for Incanter's Flow in the opening hand.
I'm taking that as a point to me.
Let's filter it by on coin, as xBlyzes. Hasn't changed. Sorry, I was trying to make it better for you, but couldn't get there.
I'll take it. That's as close as I ever get. Here, though, you can see that what we were talking about earlier, right? Suddenly, yes, Blyze has played Incanter's Flow. We can see there's a second one in hand as well, which is crazy with double Spring Water. Bozzdton's rocking a couple of Apexis Blasts and a Rune Orb here, so I think yet again, you do what the game tells you to do and start going face.
It's just the same hand he had last time we saw him play this matchup, right? Like he got there in the end, but whether or not this is going to be good enough this time around, but I just don't really see any other option. Just get her done. Throw it at the face. That ain't it. Coining Spring Water, I imagine here. Double discount on the flows. Oh, did hit the 1 thief though. That is the failure rate built in with this version of the deck. Other versions do play Gadgetzan Auctioneer, of course, which can hit the same problem, but you always feel a little bit hard done by such a low number of minions in the deck, generally only 2. In Psycho's case, I think he's playing 1, but most lists are playing 2 minions, whether they be Auctioneers or 1 thieves.
Yeah, Bozzdton's got the mana cost now with that Spring Water that even with the nerf will give him enough mana to play Apexis Blast straight up, and again...
Nope, he's already spent 1.
No, yeah, he played a Spring Water, sorry. The first Spring Water he played, right?
Oh, I see, right.
Yeah, apologies. He played the Spring Water, then he could still play Apexis Blast. So, I think he should just go for it, right? He still has a Rune Orb. He's running a little bit dry after that, but does have Spring Water number 2 if he needs to go really fishing for Ignites. Like, I don't know any other way he's going to go here, and it just feels like a very smooth curve. Whereas going for Water now just means he has to spend more mana later, which might not necessarily be what he wants to do. Phoenix is a big deal, though.
Yeah, Phoenix lining up with the Cram Session is huge. If he can drop that later on, hit a Cram Session, or like rip the Cram Session, hit some Ignites, really cash in on the spell damage, because that's kind of the business he's in right now, right? It's just efficiently as possible dealing damage. It's the spot he's put himself in the matchup. Blyze is delighted with his draw here.
Oh, it says explode!
Picks up First Flame, which he needed for quest completion.
Speed. I didn't know animations can go this fast, because when I play the game, they are way slower, or at least it feels like anyway.
And this is why. If it was not immediately apparent to you why that draw was the nuts, now you see it, because that's Bozzzton in play this turn with Cram Session in hand, Spring Water in hand, 2 flows, discounting every card in his deck.
And even just the Rune Door being able to be played for 1 mana, push a ton of damage is a big deal too. So Bozzzton now, hands looking clunky. He does have Flurry to just freeze out this this 7/7, so he just doesn't have to care about this dealing 7 to his face. Has Fireball for next turn, Rune Orb as well.
Give me the armor, please! I'll trade the 5/5 for the armor.
Yeah, again, Bozzzton. Although it's looking good for Blyze getting this done so early, and Blyze could just win this turn. Bozzzton doing a good job making a making a bad situation reasonable.
Starts with the Rune Orb. Finds himself a Pex's Blast, which is damage if needed. He'll probably find more efficient methods of damage than that Apex's Blast in the end, though, but we shall see. Oh!
Noises!
Immediately Ignite, second Cram Session. Spring Water's going to chug this mana back up again at some point.
Is it enough, though?
Flurry Session again.
Needs to win this turn.
There's another flow, and he still has Fireballs in his deck. Yep, there's the Fireball. There's the Apex's Blast.
Oh my,
that is more than enough.
It was close, though, because the Phoenix procs next turn, and there's just Fireball ping for Bozzzton to end the game. He almost got there, but Blyze just went too fast. Him getting the quest done that whole turn earlier, look at the impact it made on the game. Bozzzton had that set up to win with that Phoenix without any issues. Even if there was a counter spell, he had plenty of cheap spells to throw that away and still have the mana to get the job done. And getting the quest achieved so early for Blyze, getting the minion down, spending that 5 mana, paid off in spades and was just enough for him to win the mirror in a pretty quick fashion, honestly.
And that's why you saw the fist pump as well, right? Like, it looked like a very innocuous card to draw. The First Flame, I think it was the pickup. It's hard to tell what cards Blyze draws sometimes because they're gone from his hand by the moment they go in there. But he knew immediately that allowed him to finish the quest, and that allowed him, as Raven was saying, to just be 1 turn further ahead. But you can see just how much damage he had left going, right? He had a third flow in his hand that he could play for 0, and then a Spring Water that he could play, and then have 4 more mana to spend after that with the cards that he drew from the rest of the deck, which could have continued to be Fireballs or Arcane Intellect or anything else that was left in there. So he had an enormous amount of potential overkill there at the end, but it all came down to that incredibly rapid quest completion, landing Bozzzton on 5, which is obviously the earliest possible turn that you can do that.
And Blyze now is going to be on the Secret Paladin, very similar to the list we saw from Bozzzton not too long ago in this series, but instead is playing what I would call the standard version, or more of a standard version, because he isn't playing that Avenge in there. He is just playing still the 1 Galloping Savior, but just no Avenge, and just playing more of a fleshed out sort of 2 of everything kind of list.
Yeah, I think it's certainly Blyze has kind of followed the meta a little bit more, I would say. Not in the sense that he's like paid attention to the meta more, but as I said, Bozzzton's been playing that kind of Paladin list for quite some time, and it's very much, I think, his list that he's put together, whereas Blyze has just kind of paid attention to Twitter and the scene, right, and seen this list come out and picked up the list himself. So a little bit of a discrepancy between the 2 decks, but in general, very similar theme.
Double Brain Freeze is very nice versus Paladin, because, again, when you play Mage, you run into one of 2 styles of deck. One that you struggle to play your spells against to prop the quest, or one that just plays so many minions that's your worry is you don't have enough spells to actually kill them. Here though against Paladin, freeze is going to be huge, especially because of the threat of Battleground of Battlemaster, which again has the knock-on effect of why these Paladin decks have started running more and more stealth minions. I know Lorinda's a huge fan of the Jungle Panther, the Paladin that's going around, because it's just more stealth, which means more ways for your opponent to not be able to interact with your minions and therefore set up more damage with conviction.
Oh, this meta's so great. That's how you know. That's a sign of a good meta right there, when Jungle Panther is a playable Hearthstone card. Yeah. That's how you know you're in a good place.
It can only be marginally improved is if the tiger is involved. Good old Stranglethorn.
El Tigre.
Pretty interesting that Bozzzton chose to ping last turn. He could have just overkilled it with Ignite and started moving towards the quest.
True. It is very true indeed, but I think he just wants to I think he wants to hold on to removal as best he can, right? Like, I think he's just trying to stretch this out as long as possible because he doesn't have the like the AoE freezes, the flurries, right? To just say no and kind of play more the. I've been trying to avoid saying this word ever. Playing solitaire by just completing his own quest as best as possible. Oh, he did it! Say the thing! Say the thing! Solitaire! Yay! But he, I think, because he doesn't have that like freeze button that he can just press, he's having to be a little bit more careful with what he uses his removal on and just trying to stretch it out as best he possibly can.
Again, though, I'm already wondering whether he can just go for Fire Sale here, because it does double proc his fire, which is unfortunate. But the more chip damage he takes, the more of a fear of, well, if my opponent sticks a minion, I'm dead next turn, later on. It's a tough call, though. He does have Refreshing Spring Water into Brain Freezes next turn, though.
True.
So I think it hurts.
Bly's hand just doesn't really go anywhere apart from Plan A, right? Which is just trying to make a big minion and then landing Battlemaster on it. And he's going to get shut down by Brain Freeze. Well, he's going to be able to do it. Whether those minions get to attack or not is a different question, right?
They'll be able to attack eventually.
Okay.
I mean, it looks good, right? Coin Blessing onto the minion that we can see will, at least one minion will survive this turn. Then it's going to force Freeze out. And then if it's frozen, he can just either Blessing it again, which would be hilarious. Again, Bozzzton, I just want to shout out, is not running a Devolving Missiles in his list here. Okay. So he can Blessing, and then Blessing again if it's frozen. Then even if it's frozen again, he can play Hammer of the Naru, and then he's still got Battlemaster. So you force your opponent, or xBlyzes will force Bozzzton to freeze or generate some way to kill this every single turn of the game, or it's over.
You know what? When you're right, you're right. You raise an excellent point. I wasn't accounting for just how quickly the added health outraces the health that's getting removed on the other side by the damage.
8.
Yeah, it's going to be a bit of a nightmare.
Oh, he's going to go Weapon Swing. Interesting. He's going to threaten Yogg here, but I believe no secrets have been played yet, so it could have pulled the horse, and I believe it has pulled the horse.
It is, yep. Yeah. That is galloping.
That's a galloping.
That's a galloping. They sorted the Fallen on 5 and attack face. That's a galloping.
I'm really surprised you didn't just go Blessive Authority number 2. I would have slammed that so fast and just been like, freeze me again.
I wonder.
Particularly against the Apexis Blast deck, right? This is a pretty easy to. You're just looking at Apexis Blast Brain Freeze or Apexis Blast First Flame, something like that, to be able to clean this up very nicely, create a decent board swing.
Fireball does the job as well.
True.
He knows it's not Yogg now, so he has the 100% information that it is galloping.
Job's done. A good draw in the end, because obviously Bozzzton, when I'm talking through the options, when I know that it's Galloping Savior, Bozton's trying to find a line that plays around Oh My Yogg as well, which obviously, like, Apexis Blast Brain Freeze absolutely does not do. So he went for the expendable spell first, but still found himself in a position where drawing the Fireball kind of bailed him out in the end.
Nice, so now Bozzzton knows this is Yogg, so he has to spend mana on arguably doing nothing is the expectation, I guess. And then xBlyzes, once more, piling on the pressure with these minions every single turn, especially that there are 2 minions on board with no ice barrier live. Bozzzton has to be afraid. He can start with First Flame and then still have a Pexis Blast Brain Freeze if he really wants. Could even like do a weird thing or like an odd looking thing and a Pexis Blast to 3/4 and Brain Freeze the Elemental. So he can just remove everything off the board or in terms of attacks next turn.
Yeah, sure.
It will proc the horse though.
Wait, what? What was the first card you were playing? I thought you just were doing a Pexis Blast.
First Flame. Well, he has to play something else because of Yogg. So he First Flame, a Pexis Blast, Brain Freeze. But that'll proc the 3/4.
Okay. Illidari. Not bad.
Now we can just stick with Brain Freeze, Ping Pass.
Go Combustion Brain Freeze instead. Yeah, this is fine.
Okay, it's just going to give him the horse.
No, it won't, right? Oh, my Yogg doesnn't... Oh, no, it does. Okay, yeah, I had it backwards. You're just going to give him the 3/4 in the end, which will still represent a good chunk of damage with Conviction in the end. But I think also this does allow a little bit of quest completion for Bozzzton with the way that he does it, which is pretty nice.
Yeah, it's fair, right? It's not as if like, oh, you gave him a minion to attack. It's like, well, yeah, but he spent his mana progressing his own game plan as well.
Yeah.
Right? It's not like he just randomly did it. But here's the threat, right? Now there needs to be more freezes. And let me have a quick glance. Nope, there are no flurries in the hand there for Bozzzton, so he's in trouble.
Needs help from the Spring Water. First Flame is not it. Fire Sale is tradable. He has to know, right? He has to know. Got to go fishing, surely.
Yeah.
Oh, can you just like a Pexis Blast and say Taunt? Like, why is that better out?
Maybe. Because it's not only Battlemaster, it's Conviction, right? Which I'm pretty sure he knows he has.
He's going to trade. That's not a flurry. Yeah, shake of the head from Bozzzton. Oh, it's such a big loss, but I think he's committed to the line, right? I think he just has to keep drawing cards.
So, does Barrier survive through Conviction? 15. 24, I think, xBlyzes has with just one Conviction this turn.
14, 17, I get 23.
Oh, I probably added over.
Which is a big difference when you're dealing in numbers of 16 plus 8 on the other side. But yeah, 11 plus 3 is 14, plus 3 is 17, plus 6 is 23, right?
Yep. And that looks like it's going to be all done and dusted because there's not only Conviction and there isn't only Battlemaster. There's both.
xBlyzes was just waiting. He was giving it the old Pheno, calm down, dude. Just making sure he was able to attack in the end. And in the end, he got there. And 28 from the Wind Fury will be enough to get him over the line.
Yeah, and it's going to feel a little bit rough as, you know, of all people, Bozzzton's taking this loss to the Paladin that he has basically been playing for a while now and one of the early adopters of this style of Paladin as well.
Oh.
And xBlyzes, it's been too long since we saw this screen, hasn't it, Sol? He's just out. He's done. He's got more Warlock to play, more rank 1 to secure on ladder. But congratulations to him getting a strong win there and moving on to tomorrow once again. So strong series there from xBlyzes. I think, again, lightning fast play, nothing unexpected here, but decision making feels on point yet again, Soto. We might have the same again for another season.
Yeah, genuinely, it's been long enough since I've seen xBlyzes play that I forgot that was going to happen, and it delighted me all over again. The Alt F4 as soon as he wins, it's fantastic. Yeah, obviously xBlyzes is a fantastic player. Runner-up, obviously, in our last season of GM, and just coming very narrowly behind Frenetic, who was our seasonal champion. And he's in the form of his life right now, at least in terms of ladder play. I think he's probably very much enjoying playing in this metagame as well, as evidenced by him pulling a Gabby. When I was saying he was rank 1 on Americas, he's done the Gabby thing of stretching rank 1 on Americas, where he has played 80-something games, I believe, at 70% win rate, like on rank 1, something crazy along those lines. He's likely miles ahead on Americas Americas of his ladder standing. And now, Raven, we go forward to Sunday with, you know, a fantastic matchup between two great players, between Viper and Floki at the top there. But come on, that second semi-final, that is what we all want to see.
Yeah, probably the two, I would say, recent superstars of the European Grandmaster scene, as in new players. Blyze coming out of nowhere, winning multiple Masters tours, and just being an incredible player. Not only decision making, but the speed in which he makes those decisions is ridiculously fast. I just don't understand it. And then we have Gabby, you know, started playing Hearthstone super young, started being very good at Hearthstone super young, and continuing to perform very well.